So from the video I did for the VEEPEAK diagnostic tool for the other two cars, the Land Rover and the Renault, a few people have asked would this work on the Giulietta. So I know obviously, normally what I use is the multi-ECU scan tool, connected to the laptop, through the leads, out the back of the OBD port down here. But I thought for now, you know, let's give it a go, see what we can do. This is obviously quite a cheap tool, it's only about 30 quid I think, something like that in the sales I got it for, or £40 something, full price. So what do you get, value for money? Will it work on your Giulietta? So let's have a look. So just as I did in the previous video, I'm going to have to use this phone that I'm using for videoing for the Diagnostic app. So basically I'm going to need to screen record on this phone, and then what I'll try and do is narrate over the top of it. Okay, so firstly let's get the tool plugged in. So for those of you that remember, and those of you that don't, down here by your knees, you've just got this panel. There's 1, 2, 3 clips. I've actually already removed mine once already. So I'm just going to pull this away. There you go, you can see where those clips go in, 1, 2, and then the third one just over there. They go into those kind of silver retainers, and then that just comes away. And then hopefully you can see just there is where the cover for the OBD port is. So you just pull that away, and that's where we're going to plug it into. So what I'm going to do now is just open the app and add this car in. That's the first step we're going to do. Go into the app and add the new car. Okay, so we're using the car scanner app. So just then top right, go into settings, and then you can see the top option here is my cars. So we're just going to tap on that, and you can see the 2 existing cars that we set up previously. So top right again, we just got the plus button. So we're going to click on plus, and then the first thing we can do is just give it a name. So we'll conveniently call this one Giulietta. And then the second point we need to do is just add on the year. So ours is a 2011. Once you've done that, just tap on the car to highlight it grey, and then we should be able to select car, and that will take us back to the menu. Okay, great. So with the car added, what we're going to do now is just take the key and just get it in the ignition, turn it on. Just to that point, we're not going to start the engine, we're just going to leave it there, and now we can go back into the app and configure the connection settings. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is then just go into the connection settings. So Bluetooth LE is the option that we need for this dongle, connecting it through the iPhone. If you've got an Android, it's slightly different. The next one is connection profile. So we're just now going to click on that profile, and that's where we set up the car. So we're going to Alfa Romeo, and you can see the only option we've got for Giulietta there is 1.4. So if you can't see your car, you go for the kind of the standard option, which is the top one here, which is OBD2, EOBD, so all compatible Alfa Romeo vehicles. So we're going to select that one and OK that. That then takes us back to this menu, or in the settings menu, should we say. And then from that, what we can do is then just go back. Down the bottom, you can see we've got connect. At the minute it says disconnect on both of those 2 modules. So we're going to hit connect in just a second. And you can see straight away it's trying to connect to it, but it actually says turn on Bluetooth. So I've actually got flight mode activated at the minute because I don't want notifications coming up on the screen while I'm going through it. So I'm just going to turn Bluetooth back on, run back into that. There we go, that's turned on. As soon as that happens, you can see down the bottom it's saying connected to the first module, and it's actually connected to the second module. So straight away we're connected. So top options that we've got on the menu, I'm just going to run through some of these items. Top left one there is dashboard, so clicking on that, that just gives you a very high level dashboard where you can see obviously engine RPM and stuff like that, coolant temperature. The engine isn't running at the moment, so that's why we're getting no data on that, and the ambient temperature outside today is about 12-13 degrees, so that's why the coolant shows that. Sliding left, you get an option for adding more elements into it, so you can add different elements, should we say, and then sliding left again, you can see more information, but again, because the engine isn't running, we aren't getting that much data coming back in. Sliding left takes you back to the main one. There's only 3 screens on this one, and then top left just takes you back. Next one in the middle, top middle, we've got live data. So I'm going to click on that one now, and we learned our lessons from when we did the Land Rover and the Renault. Hit combined, it's much easier than the separate options. So we'll go on to combined, and that's where we can see kind of our list of different options that we can select while we're trying to interrogate whatever module it might be, or whatever system it is that we want to look at. So we're just going to select 1 or 2 for now, First one, just voltage there, just so that we can see some of that data that we've got, remembering that the engine isn't running at the moment. And then engine coolant temperature that we've already seen, just hit OK on that, and you can see there's not a lot of information coming in there. The voltage there is about 11.5 volts and only 13 degrees outside, so that confirms what we saw previously as well. Coming back out of that, you can see that we've still got those two selected. It remembers what it was that you selected. So I'm going to try and select a third one here, and what you'll see is when I try and connect to it, it says that you need the Car Scanner Pro for connecting to more than 2 at a time. So I'm just going to turn those 2 off, or those 3 off rather, and you can see it now says selected 0. So that's where you can have a different license, you can upgrade to it. You get rid of all the adverts that are normally down the bottom as well, but because I've got Wi-Fi turned off, I'm not getting that. So coming back out of the live data, the next option top right there was all sensors. So you can see there's a bit more information around some of the various different components, parts. A lot of systems, it says they're not available. I'm guessing probably that's because the engine isn't running again, so we're not getting that information coming in. Coolant temperature and all these strange random things, all these element bits of information, useful information, should we say, statistics and so on, that we can see coming in, and the other points that we've got that we can see as well about fuel consumption being used and all those sorts of good things. Current time there as well, 9:55. I believe that's taken from the app and not from the car, because it's actually slightly 1 minute off in the car at the moment. You've got the option there as well of distance to empty and calculated cost of the fuel used and price. What you can actually do is go into the app and add in the cost of the fuel that you're putting in, and it will actually work out for you the cost of a particular journey. Next one, middle left, diagnostic trouble codes are DTCs. So this is the one that this tool is really all about. So we're going to go into that now. Select on the diagnostic trouble codes. And that's where we're going to try and start looking at and reading any of those fault codes that you might have on the system. So on this one, it actually tells us kind of what those fault codes are, what type of fault codes you get, stored DTC, a pending one or a permanent one. So we're going to go and just read it now. So bottom and there it says read. So this is where it's slightly different on this one compared to the other ones. It's given us different sliding options, 1, 2, 3 or 4. About what you can do, how far and how deep you can interrogate the car to understand what sort of information it is that you're trying to see. So for example, if you had a fault code up, it might be that you interrogated it on this low level number 1, but it didn't give you any fault codes, so you might kind of need to go up to this one, 2, 3 or 4 as it comes up there, and obviously you can see it kind of gives some messages about what it should and shouldn't be used for. So for now, we'll just go into number 1. We'll just hit read the codes on this, and you can see it's counting down from 22. So that's where it's interrogating 22 different systems, 22 different modules. It's just gone through there, and it's found no fault codes, which is brilliant. So that's what we were kind of expecting, because of the fact that we've cleared them, and obviously as we've gone through over the last year on this car, we've managed to clear all the fault codes. So that's why we've got nothing there. So what we can then do once we've done that is just go back. Maybe what we'll do, we'll just slide it up to number 2. It kind of gives us this warning because the text is in orange, so it suggests that it's you need to know what you're doing, and it actually gives you a message here that says that it is a warning and it is experimental. Use it at your own risk, and don't use it for those particular types of cars, obviously Volkswagen and those types of people in that group. I'm sure the emissions test would be nothing to write home about regardless anyway. So again, still it's interrogating those 22 different modules, counting down, and after 100% you can see that we've got no fault codes there again. Coming up to the next one, the third one, we'll just go into that, and you can see that we've actually got 310 modules now. So this is where I was saying it's more interrogating, but I'm not going to bore you with counting down through here, so I'm going to speed the video up now just so that we can run through this a bit faster and you don't need to sit there waiting for me to talk all the way over it. Okay, brilliant. So we're just about there now. There we go. Great. So we can see that we've actually got a couple of fault codes there. What's interesting to see is that they are archived or inactive faults. So that means that they're historical faults. So something that might have gone wrong once upon a time, but it's not an issue anymore. So for the time being, we don't need to worry about those. And in actual fact, what we can do is clear them. If we weren't on flight mode and we had the Wi-Fi turned on, what we'd be able to do is actually click on each of those options or click on each of those faults, and we'd be able to look on the internet and kind of get a better description as to what it is that they actually are. So what does P2012 mean? Obviously it says intake manifold air control actuator, but we'd be able to find out exactly what it is and how we'd go about fixing it, or what the issue might be. If we were broken down on the roadside or something like that, we could go out and see if there's a lead come off or a sensor that's kind of gone faulty that we might be able to clean roadside, for example. So what we're going to try and do, hopefully in a second, if I recall what I did. Oh no, here we go actually. So this was me clicking on it just so that you can see that it would connect to the internet if you wanted to, but for the time being I chose not to, for the sake of speeding up the video. So obviously down the bottom you've got clear. So when you tap on clear, you get clear options. So we're going to clear only found DTC, just tapping on that. It just runs through and it's cleared those. But obviously remembering, clearing a fault code doesn't clear a problem. If it's an existing problem or a current issue, then you need to get that fixed. So that's those cleared. So now what we can do is go back, and then the last option that we've got was the option number 4, which we didn't need to worry about going into. Next one we've got is freeze frame. So this is obviously, as it says there, about information on detecting any issues, and it will actually be able to provide you with the information that you've got up there. So because the engine's not running again, there's not too much information coming up. Next one, which was middle right non-continuous monitors, you can see it's reading down the bottom, the blue bar slowly going up. I'm not going to bore you with waiting for this blue bar to go all the way up to the end, and we'll come back out of that and go into the next one, which is acceleration tests. So this one's quite interesting. This is actually live information for live acceleration. So if you were trying to do a test, see how fast your car can go from 0 to any of those speeds, it will actually do it real time for you. So you just, as soon as you start accelerating, it starts counting up and stops automatically. Next one, emissions tests. So we can see here the components that are relative to the emissions, as they come through, what's passed, what's not passed. But again, I'm guessing some of these points aren't passed because of the fact that the engine's not running. So there's none of that data coming in for it to look at. The last one there is data recording. So this is where it gives you information or the stuff that you may have saved the files for before on any of those other points. So that's all those up for now. So what we can do now is just look to disconnect, I think, from the car, and we can then maybe start the engine perhaps. So just hitting disconnect, and there we go, we're now disconnected. Okay, so having disconnected from the car, what we're now going to do is start the engine. So that's all I'm doing now, is just taking the key and just turning it on, starting the engine so the engine's running. Once the engine's running, we're just going to hit connect again, as we've done there. Straight away it's given us a successful connection, which is fantastic. It's really good, straight into it really quickly. And then we can go through again, top left onto the dashboard, and we can see a bit more live information because we're actually getting some interesting data. So you can see the engine RPM there. Obviously, if I just hit the throttle a couple of times, you can see that moving up and down. Sliding left, a bit more information. So again, because the vehicle isn't moving, we're not getting any speed up or average speed or distance traveled. But obviously, if we were doing that, we were running with the diagnostic tool plugged in, then we'll be able to see that information coming in live as well. Sliding left takes you back to the first screen, and then just tapping on it we go back, and that takes us back to the menu. Back into top middle, live data, clicking on the combine again. It remembers your last options, your last settings, should we say. So it's got those two, so we'll just leave those on. So we can see here that obviously the voltage now looks a whole lot different. It's not the 11.5 volts we had, it's getting more power to it with the engine running. And as much as it looks like it's fluctuating like crazy, it's actually only going up about 0.1, 0.2 of a voltage. So that's not too bad, obviously, just as the engine's running. As the power, more power comes in, should we say, or if we blipped, if we were driving fast, obviously that would probably smooth it out to a much flatter line. Then just deselecting those two, we'll look at another couple of options, remembering that we can only select 2 at a time. So we'll just look at the MAF airflow rate there and the fuel rail pressure. So again, just like I was saying, with the data that's coming in, it looks erratic as crazy as you like. That's because we're sitting there and it's kind of idling, so it's kind of a really zoomed in view. So as soon as you kind of put some pressure on it, as soon as you start to use the throttle and get some revs going in, get some data coming through, it's sucking more air in through that MAF. You can see that what looks erratic actually more starts to smooth out, should we say, those lines come in. And then obviously you can see that more the engine starts to warm up as well, some of the pressures start to build up. So the MAF is fairly consistent there with the amount of air that's coming in, just where it's sitting and idling. But the fuel rail pressure has now built up now to where it probably should be, and it's fluctuating just a little bit between those measures that we've got there. Turning those two off again, just coming down, looking at more options that we can potentially look at, something that's going to be useful and interesting that we might want to look at. We'll look at distance to empty and the fuel used. So distance to empty, so it's not giving us a reading on that. Maybe that's because we've not got any costs or something like that in there. Maybe it's not actually able to read it. And then obviously fuel used, the longer the engine's running, we're using more and more fuel, so that's why that's going up as the time increases. Deselecting them, we'll just have a quick look, see what else we've got that we can look at. If there's something more we want to look at for now, I think maybe this one, instant power. So we can see here it's given us a horsepower reading. So if I just blip the throttle a few times as well, you can see that power measure going up, how much power is being created. How accurate this is, I'm not entirely sure. You know, obviously it's not going to give you information that's going to be as live as sticking it on a rolling road for a dyno or something like that, but sitting there, it's interesting to see the data coming in nonetheless. You know, you can try and just give it one more little blip, a little bit harder, and up to, what do we get there, 150 horsepower. So that's kind of coming out of the car. Coming out of that, maybe we'll come back to the main menu now, look at top right, all sensors, see if we're getting any more information on there. So we've got a bit more live data coming in. Now obviously the engine is running. Still, we've got lots of not available elements there, whether again that is because it's not warmed up, or maybe it's just that this reader can't actually talk to those systems on a live kind of configuration as we are at the moment. Maybe if it's interrogating it, it will give us a bit more information, but not while it's just sitting on this straight immediate direct into it. You can see obviously we've got a few more bits of information now again coming in, and again, like I say, the average fuel cost and so on, just as we looked at before previously. But like I say, the car's not moving, we're not going anywhere, we're not getting any of that real worthwhile data coming in. I'm guessing if we were looking at this as we were driving down the motorway, it'd be a lot more interesting than it is sat here on the driveway for the time being. But you know, it's interesting watching it and looking at it and seeing it coming in there. Coming back up to the top, coming back out, and I think the next option that we looked at was just disconnect from the car, and that was just disconnected now. Okay, so now we've disconnected, I'm just turning the engine off. There we go, and now what I can do is just run down here through the keys and we'll just remove the unit. Okay, so what did we find from that? So connection wise, it actually connected really well. Pretty happy with it, how easy it was to connect to it, how easy it was to set it all up. No issues with that whatsoever. So information wise, actually being able to go into it and interrogate the systems, a fair bit of information to be fair, but not really to the extent that we would be hoping for, I don't think. I think it's really good for getting the fault codes up, so being able to scan all the systems so that you can then obviously diagnose and see exactly what's wrong. If you had an engine management light come up or some sort of warning on the dashboard, you'd then be able to use it for basically plugging in and working out what that fault code was. Beyond that, I'm not really sure it's that capable for this car. Maybe if you had, I think in the option that we saw, the 1.4 Multiair, it might give you a little bit more information, you know, for the Multiair unit and so on perhaps. But obviously from our perspective, where we've got the MES software, the normal stuff that we use connected to the laptop, that gives us a whole lot more information for, in essence, what realistically isn't that much more money. Convenience wise, obviously this is great, you know, it's really small. you can fit that, leave it in the carry case that you've got there, and just pop it in the glove box and take it with you, like I say, you know, so wherever you go, you've always got the ability to diagnose a fault and find out exactly what it is, if it's something you can fix on the roadside, or if it's something, if you're away on holiday or something like that, that you can then order a part online perhaps. More convenient than the laptop, absolutely, definitely. You don't necessarily always want to be carrying a laptop and the leads around with you, but long term, if you're going to try and do more stuff with the car, I definitely recommend the MES, the Multiecuscan. But for a handy little tool that's going to be able to get you some diagnostic codes up and stuff like that, then yeah, you know, it's really convenient. The fact that you can do loads of different cars with it is really good as well. From our perspective, we've got not only the Alfa, but we've got the Disco and the Renault as well. So, you know, there's great ability in being able to transfer it from one car to another without the need to add any additional license costs or anything like that. So I think because of that, the fact that you can use it across multiple cars, it's not just limited to one. When you buy it with all the cars connected. You can see the list, or you can go on and see exactly how many different car types it's got. And what's important to remember as well is this isn't a service reset tool. You can't reset the service indicators, you can't do stuff like that. It is just a diagnostic reader. So if you're looking to get that to do any service resets and stuff, then this isn't the tool that you want. So if that's been useful, please hit like down below. If you haven't done so already, remember to hit subscribe coming up here now. Like I always say, the more likes and more subscribers I get, the more videos I keep making. So for now, really appreciate your time watching. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.